this your first time you played in an Anglican church in Ireland?
Yeah, I think it is. I've played in Anglican churches in England, but not here.
They're not the same.
Not the same? You guys are better.
Oh, way better.
Of course, yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, of course.
So it's great to have you here this morning. Thank you for coming.
Greg, it's so good being with you.
Yeah.
And everybody. And of course, Brian and Prairie are such close friends, and I feel like I'm like a homeless guy that just came down for be with friends, you know?
You look homeless a little
Thank
bit.
you, man.
Yeah. It's a good look, though.
That's what I'm going for.
You're working it.
Yeah.
So we're just going to take 20 minutes and have a bit of a conversation up here. Then we can do some questions and answers, as I was saying. Jason and I met a couple years ago shooting a music video, actually here in Dublin, for Home to Me, which is good. Thank you for dedicating that song to me this morning.
Yeah. I did.
No, you didn't. Did you in your heart?
Yeah, I did in my heart.
Thanks, appreciate that. So I have a few questions that I just kind of got off the internet this morning, and no.
Come on, man.
So let's chat. Where are you from?
Crazy. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, originally,
right.
Which is important because I'm a Viking fan. I'm not a Packer fan, and I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
You know, no one knows what that means.
I know. But there's so many that are going to see this by video, and I need to make sure.
There could be some people who are like fans of Vikings.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And so tell me, if you had to tweet an answer to this question, who is Jason Upton? Tweet length. You're answering this question yourself. Who is Jason Upton? What would you tweet?
I would tweet that I'm
That's 5 words.
Husband.
Sorry, go ahead, start again.
Husband, father to 4 children, and a follower of Jesus.
And those are your priorities kind of set out right there.
I don't know if it's my priorities, but I should probably say husband first. I think Jesus is okay with that.
I like the father was in there as well.
Yeah, father of 4 kids. I've got 4 amazing kids, and I'm a follower of Jesus. And I mean, it's hard. What do you say about yourself? You know what I mean? I don't.
What would others say about you if someone turned around and said,
I don't know. What would you say about me?
What would you say about you?
Yeah, what would you say? It's hard to know what others.
We've already covered the homeless thing, right? So,
yeah. Okay.
No, I genuinely think I would say, since I've met you, you're probably one of the most sincere people I know. You're very kind. You have a very kind heart. I probably would add caring in there as well. Because we haven't known each other very long, but even in the tweets or the emails, we've always show a level of just vulnerability and kindness. So I would say kind and vulnerable and caring. Yeah. Do you want me to tweet that afterwards?
Yeah, tweet it, please. That'd be awesome. It is funny how our children, our friends, our wives, I mean, it is amazing. It is important. Every birthday with my children, we go around the table and we say something about the person's birthday, about the person that is having the birthday. And I feel like it's so important because hearing those words from those that are closest to you of who you are to them, it's really important. And I feel like often we miss out on that, and our children need to. There's 2 things we do at birthdays for our kids right now. We tell the kids that Jesus was their age once, and then we go around the table and especially for the younger ones. The older ones kind of think it's a little cheesy now, but the younger ones think that's amazing. Like Oliver, Jesus was 6 once. Like he totally knows what it feels like. And that's important. And then also, this is what we see in you. Yeah. And to tell them. And it's amazing. Yeah.
Wow, I wish you were my dad.
Oh, man.
I have a few, so we might as well add another one to it.
Yeah.
I'm joking, just two. So why do we worship? Like if someone said, Jason, why is it? I know you're a poet, you read a lot, you're an author, you're a speaker, but why do we worship?
I mean, everybody's going to have a different answer to this. But for me, it starts with receptivity. Ultimately, I'm not the one that finds God. He's the one that finds me first, right? And it's a receptivity to the call of Jesus to follow him, and that actually he is a place for me to belong. And so that's first and foremost with Jesus coming and saying, I want you and I want to be with you. That's what he said to the disciples in Mark 3. I want you, I want to be with you. And we receive that call and we follow Jesus. Rohr would say it this way: Jesus didn't say a lot about singing, he said a lot about following. So I feel like that's an important framework for worship. And then secondly, receptivity of the sacraments, right? That we receive and we become what we're receiving. So we receive broken bread and poured out wine, right, to become that in our world. We receive mercy to be mercy. We receive grace to be grace. We receive pardon to sit at table with people in our world and pardon and forgive. And so I believe that it starts, kingdom things start with receptivity. And then I think the process of church, like with my children, we've been going to Jesu. We do a Sunday night service, kind of like you guys do here. It's, a little later in the day. We do a Sunday night service as we worship. But one of the things we've been doing is going to Jesu. It's a Jesuit Catholic, beautiful place in Milwaukee. And it's really important. My wife can receive the Eucharist, and so, because she grew up Catholic her whole life, was baptized, and so the process of them seeing that you are, that birth, it's not like birthday cake, right? That you just kind of take a chunk off in the party. It's something that has to be received, and there's a distribution of it, and you receive that. And I feel like that's another part, is that we receive sacrament to become sacrament in our world. So whether it's modern worship or liturgical worship, however you do it, when I'm talking in modern circles, what I say is, hey, I don't care what you're singing, just make sure that you actually are going to actively live what it is that you're singing.
Yeah.
So,
but how do we get out of the way of ourselves, like to be really, maybe quote unquote, free in worship? How do we get to that place? Sometimes buildings get in the way, sometimes pews get in the way, but most of the time I get in the way.
Yeah. I just think in life, worship happens a lot more organically. It's simple. I think in church sometimes we're like, well, that's not worship, or that. We're so judgmental, aren't we? Instead of coming with a heart to receive what's being given. Mm-hmm. It's like going to somebody's house, and have you ever been with somebody to somebody's house around the world? I travel maybe all the time, but I always want to have a heart to receive what's being given. And maybe that's why I get asked back to places and to people's homes is, I try to teach my kids that too. Don't walk into a home and act like you own the place or you rule the place. Walk in a home, and when people give you something, be grateful for what they're giving. You have to show that. You have to live that. And when you start doing that, you start
As both a worshiper and a worship leader, or one who leads in worship, that posture is important.
I feel like it. I can't be anything other than I am. I can't bring you an offering that I haven't lived. So I want to, to me, the activity of worship is what's important to Jesus. And I feel like sometimes we make the expression the most important. Heschel was real big on that the expression is not what's important to God, it's the activity. And when we flip that around and we make the activity of worship, following Jesus, like Rohr, when that becomes the most important thing, the expression can go on forever. You could read a poem in church or together, and it could open up something of worship. I can listen to some song. I remember years ago, my first experience with that was being invited into intercession, like prayer, for people that have lost, their families have been broken up by divorce. Mm-hmm. Listening to, and I'm crying in my car listening to, Separate Life, thanks. Who's the guy? Phil Collins, No, this is, because I've told him this story before. Great. Yeah, isn't this great?
Everybody should have a favorite song.
Yeah. So it's like, you have no right to ask me how I feel. And I know all, I didn't grow up in a divorced home, but I have so many friends that have, and their whole relationship with God and family and relationships and friendships. And something came up in me, and I just started praying. Listening to Separate Lives, I start praying for all these people that have been separated in their relationships. And I'm crying for all my friends. And how is that not a worshipful experience? Certainly it's a prayerful one. And so I think it just happens a lot more organically than we think.
And do you think there's anything new to sing?
Yeah, because every day I'm following Jesus. Every day my eyes are being opened to something new. Every day I'm receiving something. And so, yeah, there's always something new to sing.
It's very evident that for you, worship is not just singing, though.
No.
It's far greater than that.
Oh, yeah. I think singing is, yeah, it's so much more. The activity of our life is what's important. So, yeah.
What's more important to you when writing a song? Theology or melody?
Well, I would, when I listen to music, I listen to lyric first. I don't listen to music first. But that's not a rule. I mean, some people, they don't listen to lyric and they just listen to music and melody. But I would probably say melody.
Yeah.
Even though I lean toward theology, I would probably say melody. And the reason for this is, I remember being at a Jesuit retreat once, and the priest got up, and this was his whole sermon. He had a chalkboard, because they didn't have PowerPoint, but he wrote on the chalkboard a circle, and inside the circle he put unknown. And then he wrote another circle around that, and he wrote outside that the known unknown.
Yeah.
And then he wrote another circle outside of that, and he wrote the unknown unknown. And then outside of that, he wrote another circle, and he wrote mystery. And he said, somehow, the greatest minds in our world never get past the known unknown, even into the unknown unknown. But children are somehow able to bypass into mystery like that. So, yeah.
So when you write a song, is that?
I feel like melody can sometimes take you somewhere in worship. That it takes you into a mystery. It's almost mysterious how melodies, they can be haunting. They can remind you of amazing times in your life. They can.
I mean, I was at a Sigur Rós concert and then a Bon Iver concert, and I don't know anyone who actually knows the words to Bon Iver's music.
That's right.
Or Sigur Rós, God help us, it's Icelandic, right? But literally.
Bon Iver is funnier though. That's funny. Actually, I like that.
He's actually speaking English.
Yeah.
But people are crying and singing, and,
sure.
and 50 people around us, and no one's singing the same lyrics, but all of them are experiencing the same depth. They're making up and so in those situations, I find it fascinating that we're worshiping without knowing the words. There's a melody that's dragging us towards the Creator.
I've been doing that. I do that.
You sing in Icelandic or?
No, but I do actually sing in Icelandic, and I don't even know it. I'm just singing along with whatever they're doing, when I listen. I get what you mean.
But it's amazing though.
Has anybody else experienced this? Yeah.
I mean, half these people were probably at the Bon Iver concert, and just going for it.
When we listen to Andrea Bocelli, it's the same way, isn't it? Andrea Bocelli, it's like you feel like you've known the song.
Yeah.
It's like you feel like you know what he's saying.
Yeah.
Strange, isn't it?
But it's amazing then when you go back and kind of look at the theology or maybe the words, because take Bon Iver, for example, people sing it away. If you take the time to actually Google or look at the words, he talks about the lathe inside. He talks about how that turning over of his interior. And you go, wow. Now I'm surprised by the theology of his music, although I was swept away by the melody.
Mm-hmm.
But the flip side of that is when I've heard great authors write things that have been turned to music, and the theology has led me to the melody as such. So maybe they're symbiotic.
They might be. It's a tricky question.
You're welcome.
Yeah. It's a tricky question.
And tell me, do you like writing? Is that something you enjoy doing, or is it now a chore for you?
No, I love it.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite thing, writing lyric.
Okay. And do you write Is the lyric, do they come to you in the shower?
Long live the journey, long live the children we raise. That's how I write. Long live the memory like leaves the years carried away.
Right.
Like at some point, I'm going to do a whole record where I just speak my songs.
So is that new just now?
No.
Because I would like copyright.
Yeah. No, that's the Redwoods and Daisies.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
Long live the memories. Like that's how I write every song I've ever written. Other than maybe some spontaneous songs in the early days, I write every song. Long live the journey, long live the children we raise. Long live the memories like leaves the years carried away. Like a tree that slowly grows, the higher we reach, the deeper we go. We're living for something that'll be here when we're old. We're headed for someplace a little further down the road. That's how I write. And I'll go over it and over it and over it and over it and over it again.
Because like, for example, that song is a perfect example. This morning you sang that, correct?
Yeah.
And I didn't know those lyrics.
Right.
So my eyes were closed and I was being swept away with what God was doing in the room.
Yeah.
And through the music, yes. But now I hear the lyrics and I go, no, okay, now I want to go back and actually listen to the song again because it'll take me deeper.
Yeah, right.
Love that.
And so I'm reading Richard Rohr, Falling Upward, and I get to the end of that song. Some people's reason for living is to get all they can and move on. But I find more grace in what's given because it leads me to where I belong. Elders are people who hold long grace in their hands. Where death is a doorway and fallen's just learning to stand, and less is more than we really need and empties a space for us to receive. We're living for something that'll be here. So that's when I'm writing, all that is in me. And so I read and I pray and I spend time with Jesus, and then all of a sudden I just go into these moments and stuff just starts coming like that. And then I try to put music to it, and sometimes, Al helps me with that.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'm good at it and sometimes I'm not that good at it.
I wanted to ask you about that. There's a collaborative effort in your writing as well.
Sure.
You've mentioned Al numerous times.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
a collaborative effort in just being disciples together, following Jesus, and being in relationship. And I don't play with people I'm not in relationship with. It's just that simple.
Why?
Because the whole fun of music is relationship. That's the whole fun of church, and it's all about fidelity. And the greatest things that happen in life come from fidelity. And then that helps you sort of like work out your absolutes, but it also, in music, in form. But it also, but without fidelity, the form can be there. I've played with people that try to copy the form of Al, but then if I just move just one, especially nowadays, everything's done to a click track, right? So a lot of these players aren't learning how to play relationally.
Right.
So if you move just a little, just moved, you slowed down there, where Al, he'll just scoop you right up, And players that know you, they know exactly where you're going. It's like, and so relationship is so important, especially with music that's poetic and real, authentic. And I would go so far as to say that Neil Young's and go on, the list goes on and on. Those people do not hire pro musicians. They bring their friends. They play with their friends. Yeah. It's just the way I think that music was supposed to be played.
Yeah, I like that. Mm-hmm. And tell me, what are you reading these days?
Well, Brian Zahn, of course. Of course, Greg. I'm halfway through that book, and
it's further than most.
We got to talk about it. So I'm not the ferocious reader that Perry and Brian are.
Believe me, I spent a few days with them. They are ferocious.
They read books in a day, and you're like, okay. So, but a book that's really I've been reading lately a book called The Journey to the Common Good by Walter Brueggemann. Oh, yeah. And it's devastating and awesome.
Why is it devastating though?
Well, because his writing always disorients you first, and in a good way. It's a great thing. I mean, I'm not really disoriented politically by his writing or anything like that anymore. But just, like how about this? The breadbasket of Egypt is, Pharaoh's Egypt, or the breadbasket of the ancient world is Pharaoh's Egypt. We see it as far back as Abraham going there and, when there was a famine to get food. And And he says, and the irony is that the man, Pharaoh, who has everything, we find, ironically, has bad dreams. Dreams of scarcity. Nightmares of scarcity. The one who has it all has nightmares of scarcity.
Wow.
And you'd think that, in American culture, you start talking that kind of stuff, like, whew.
I think in any Western culture, if you sit back and think about it.
Why do we have so much anxiety in Western culture? Why is it a plague?
And why are we so distracted by satisfaction as well?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like we all want to be satisfied all the time. And what is that? That's rhetorical, I guess. Although if you have an answer, I really would like to know it.
Yeah, satisfaction. Yeah, I mean, in my own life, if you want me to be vulnerable, satisfaction is often sort of bad satisfaction, if you will. You know what I mean? Things that are kind of off the mark are often, sort of being off the mark from like a yearning inside us to find home, to find belonging. And I think that goes back to what we said earlier, why we worship is ultimately belonging, becoming, finding home. This is what we're all, that's what humanity, you are where we all have come from and you are where we long to go. We have journeyed far from Eden and we are coming home. So that song encapsulates that idea. It's like, and so on the journey home, we find all these different places, and we're like, whoa, that's not home, but I still have this desire to find home. And we find our rest when we find God. In fact, I love this. I wrote this in Jesuit retreat last year. We don't find God, we don't find Jesus. So who do we find? Oh, you have that.
Yeah, I was going to read it to you.
Oh, yeah. Where'd you get this?
You texted me.
Oh, I texted you. We don't find, so this is it. We don't find God.
This is from a Jesuit retreat in 2015.
Yeah. So I'm on this retreat, and the guy opens it up by saying, we don't find God. He's a blind guy, so he doesn't look at you like that. We don't find Jesus. So I wrote that down. And he kind of went off into some other stuff. But at the end of the retreat, I just wrote this little poem. It just says, we don't find God. We don't find Jesus. So who do we find? Well, we find ourselves eventually, hopefully. And when we do, we find the God who found us and loved us long before we could find and love ourselves. That's it. That's it.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's awesome.
You're awesome.
Thanks. We're going to do some questions and answers now. Feel free, there's a roaming mic and Orla's going to bring it around. So is there any questions you have for Jason? Don't be shy. Don't be Irish. In a wonderful way. The second row there.
Hi, my name's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
My question is kind of a personal one, and it's, so God gives us all different gifts, and one of the gifts could be like hospitality, making coffee, and then yours is obviously singing and writing songs, and I love singing too. I used to dance in front of the mirror to Michael Jackson.
Oh, who didn't? Yeah. Seriously, the song's called Man in the Mirror, right?
So I suppose what I'm asking you is how do you stay humble, not turn into this rock star and make it about yourself and be like, oh, I find it's a good day, or, and also if you're having an off day and you're on tea and coffee duty, that's okay because you're on tea and coffee duty, you don't really have to. Well, you do have to be present, but it's not like you're on stage in front of people if you're having an off day. So I suppose maybe keep it about worship and not about being a rock star. And I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it does.
Well, Jesus says over us that we're the light of the world, which is sort of an odd thing. And I feel like stars are sort of people that don't get that. That or maybe I'm at a more immature level of what I was really created for. That as a dad, and Rachel as a mom, you really get that feel that you're the energy your children live off of in many ways. That the greater your light, the less people can look at you, but the more they need you. We can't even look at the sun, but it's illuminating. It's giving energy to everything around it. And I think often we think of light as stars, like who are the people we're all looking at? But really, like in this church, the strength of being the light of the world isn't who everybody's looking at. It is that to a certain degree, but it's actually real communities that you live in. They have a real connection with the people that are actually bringing the energy to how it's all happening. And so there's no place within the church community, family community, there's nobody that isn't incredibly important. And I think that's one of the, I'm sure there was, Brian could tell you and Perry could tell you, other people that have brought this up, but my first encounter with even anybody talking about, relevancy or being in the limelight or whatever, being the first temptation of Jesus was Henry Nouwen in his book, In the Name of Jesus. And it gives a great, there's no better book maybe than In the Name of Jesus for taking you on that journey, even with his buddy Bill and that whole thing, to give you a sense for what we were really created to be. And you're the light of the world. And the greater your light, the less people can look at you, but they know you exist and they need you to exist because of what you illuminate, the energy you bring. And the lesser your light, the more people can just stare at you. And so I feel like that's, what keeps you from doing that is recognizing, is walking with Jesus. Because nothing else will really make you realize that person's extremely important to what you do, and we don't even want to admit that. Because we're so, and I don't know how it is here, but in the U.S., we're such an independent culture from the time we're young. We're scared to admit our dependency, or at least to admit interdependency with others, our need for other people. And I feel like, God's being merciful to any one of us that are showed early that we have weakness and we have need. And we have need of others. Because the more you recognize that, the less you're going to, and early, that those same people that will praise you will also scapegoat you. You can't give your life to that. And it isn't really how Jesus gets it all the job done of salvation and restoration and redemption in our world. It isn't. It's through community and relationship. And
great. Thank you.
Yep.
Another question?
Hello. Thanks for being here.
Oh yeah, great being here. What's your name?
Leslie.
Leslie.
So my question is, I'm curious about your journey. How did you transition, or how did God transition you from having the desire, in your case, as a worship leader or a musician, from kind of carrying the desire in your heart or having visions, practicing at home, maybe leading from time to time, to actually, I guess, walking in it, and also in that practically, just because I also do worship and I'm a musician, just, I don't know, out of curiosity, and the whole transition to, how did you get to record? First time, how did all of that?
Yeah, well, just really quickly, early on, I had, my first mentors were Robert Stamps and Ellen Stamps. And Ellen and Robert married when they were 40. Ellen was working with Corrie ten Boom when they met in England.
Wow.
And they were my first mentors. And Ellen's in all the books, and she's from Finland. And they were really the first people that illuminated in me that I was poetic, that I and taught me how to pray. I mean, they were the first ones that taught me the first people to introduce me to Henry Nouwen, for instance, and got me on that journey of, the necessity of prayer and how we pray, both in written prayer and also just opening ourselves to receive from Jesus every day. And they were also the first ones that sort of said, "Oh, you're like a poet. You need to write this stuff down, and then, oh, you play. Oh, you sing. You should sing in church sometime." And then, sort of the journey was, really for me, it started with from my parents and from so many friends in my life and mentors, encouraging me to be still and know that I'm God, right? And eventually you end up at be. And that was one of the first poems I ever read, I ever wrote was understanding why my Bob Stamps had said to me, "Jason, be still and know that I'm God." I mean, this doesn't seem like I'm answering you, but I really am. Be still and know. Be still, Jason. Be. And then like 12 years later, I wrote, because be is the beginning of beginning. And be is the beginning of belonging. And be is the beginning of becoming. And be is the beginning of beautiful. And be is, this is good for me because I got saved like 400 times by the time I was 15. Be is the beginning of behaving, right? And that be is the beginning of beautiful is such an important one because what you are and what you have to give to the world, as you know, I mean, often it's not how many new acts of creativity come out and everybody's like, yeah, they're amazing. We do this in our world, but only really in the Christian world, right? It sounds like, they're like this. They're not that, but they like this. And but that's not what is attractive to us. That in your creation, God formed you to be an attraction to the world, right? To be an attraction. Like all creation is an attraction to God. That God's constantly trying to attract us to Him. And with all my children, I'm always trying to tell them that what's unique about you is what's attractive about you. And so if you can't find yourself and who you really are, you won't be that beautiful voice if you're constantly just being a copy. And just as simple as this is what you learn when you raise children. How do they scream for 4 hours and never lose their voice? You go ask, I asked a friend of mine in Milwaukee who's an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and he gave me the answer. He said, because they're not trying to sound like anybody. That literally, they find that a baby screams with a completely open larynx and doesn't put any pressure because they haven't learned to form their words the way that dad does. They're trying, we copy. And if I copy even the way I sang something once, my voice gets tired quicker. But when I just, let it out, the way my voice was created to be. Like when I was a little boy, I started losing my voice at about 17, I started losing my voice. And it wasn't puberty or anything. It was just, why was I learning? Because I was embarrassed that I had a high voice. Because people would be like, Bonnie, is this you? That's my mom's name. You know what I mean? That's embarrassing. So I started talking a little bit lower, you know what I mean? Like this. But if I talk like this all day long, I will hurt my voice. And I could talk like this all day long, and this is my natural voice. I could talk like this for 5 hours straight and never lose my voice. Because I'm not trying to sound like somebody. And that's important for you. Will you receive that? Let me just pray that for you right now. Jesus, thank you for mothers and fathers, and thank you for all these gathered people of faith. You give us creation just like the trees outside. This is your child. And this is your creation that you're proud of. And we want to participate in the ongoing creation. of your child here. And we declare over you that you're uniquely and wonderfully made. And my prayer for you is that this year you begin to find your voice, the gifts that God's placed in you. Because they're amazing, because they're from God. Amen.
Any other questions? Back here? See them. Take a few more.
Hi, Jason. Chloe.
Hi, Chloe.
Firstly, I'd like to thank you because your songs are like spiritual baths for me. And in some of the darkest moments of my life, Jesus has used your words to lead me the way forward. So I really, really appreciate what you do. And secondly, my question to you is, what is something that Jesus has done lately that has made you laugh?
Bonnie?
Yeah, that's funny. That Jesus has done? I don't even know.
I saw a platypus.
I know there's something.
When's the last time you saw a platypus?
That's funny.
That's funny. Oh, it's funny.
That is funny.
They're bizarre looking characters.
Oh.
Do you find joy though? I mean, like, is there a relationship with joy when it comes to your faith?
I think I'm heading that way. Joy. To be honest, I'm not. I'm much more of a sort of introspective, probably a little less like, but I love to laugh. I love to laugh.
Yeah.
I love laughter, comedy.
Sure.
I don't know.
Nacho Libre.
Jim Gaffigan really gets me. Lord have mercy. I listen to Jim Gaffigan with my son, and I laugh so hard. He loves the circumcision bit that he does. Oh my! It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable with a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, that is funny to listen to.
If you want to know any lines, my son Joshua knows.
Oh, he knows. Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. And then he wants Grandma and Grandpa to listen to it right when they come over, of which it's like, okay.
It was the last time Grandma and Grandpa even thought about circumcision.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. It's funny.
Is joy hard to write about? Because I find joy is it's easier to express, but is it hard to communicate in song or to call people forward and worship to? Or a friend of mine says that seriousness is not a fruit of the spirit, but joy is. So it's there in the center of it all. So like, how do you even express that in a?
Well, I think it's interesting that I don't necessarily think that joy is laughing.
Right.
I think that there's just things that bring me joy. Being with my children bring me a lot of joy. My wife brings me a lot of joy. And often it's because she's not like me.
Right.
And so, in every way. I mean, we're very similar in lots of ways, but...
She doesn't have a beard.
No, I mean, she's about having a good time. Let's say, like, we gather with people, and everybody in the church, wants to get together with her and talk about their problems. And I'll tell you something that gave me joy is 2 weeks ago, I'm sitting with Rachel and we're having coffee, and she doesn't drink coffee actually, but she's having tea. And she said, Jay, I'm really struggling because I get together with some of these ladies at the church and they're bringing all these problems to me. And I don't know what to do with that. It's just not her thing isn't to like, oh, you got problems. She's not a codependent kind of person,
Right.
And I said, well, maybe you just don't have a, maybe you just don't have a, maybe you just don't have a tolerance for that, you know what I mean? Or maybe you just don't have it wasn't the word I used though, I used some other word that was special. But anyway.
Maybe you don't have a heart?
It was like, maybe you don't have a disposition for that, or maybe it's just not your makeup to, and anyway, she responds to me almost instantly, and she goes, you know what, I a huge tolerance for? I have a huge tolerance for having a good time. Or something like that. And I just started laughing hysterically. I thought it was so fun. Because I am more the type of person that, man, I'd love to sit with you and talk about all your problems. And then maybe I'll write about them, or, I'm cool with it, or encourage you, or, no. But Rachel, she's like, I have a high threshold for having a good time. She said to me. So anyway, fantastic. But yeah, that made me laugh.
That's good. Yeah. There's a question back here. And then we'll take one more after this, as the guys have to get back to the north for another gig tonight.
Hi, Jason.
Yeah.
My name is Rob. I'm from Coventry, England.
Did you understand that?
Yeah.
Good.
I passionately believe that when we worship, God invites us to worship with our whole being.
Yes.
So that worship isn't just a purely rational activity. We fully engage our emotions. I think we see that in the Psalms. I think we see it in the worship of the ancient Hebrews.
Yep.
But
holism, right?
At the same time, I sometimes today, in some streams of church, I see a form of worship that appears to be excessively about emotion, to the extent where how good our worship is defined by kind of how much the hair stood up on the back of our neck, and it's all about seeking an emotional high, often at the expense of theological integrity, and that concerns me. But at the same time, at the other end of the scale, sometimes in liturgical worship, using hymns and that kind of material, you can have very theologically rich worship.
Now, are you speaking as an Englishman right now? Or are you speaking as a, and what I mean by that culturally, are you saying that I'm emotional and you're indirectly saying this, or are you speaking generally? Are you asking me a question? Okay. Because you know how English guys are, they'll kind of like, I'm just kidding.
They'll sneak it in. No sneaky.
No, but it'll help me answer your question, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
We can have theologically deep, rich worship done in a style which is very dry and doesn't invite us to engage.
I get it.
How do you bridge the gap between the two? How do we have worship that is full of theological richness and integrity and depth, but that invites us to fully engage our emotions as well? I mean, is it just about having songs with lyrics that are theologically sound, or is it about worship style, or how do you see that?
What brings me joy is that little bit I told you about learning that about Brugman. I mean, I'm a strange person because those type of things bring me joy. Words bring me joy and satisfaction, and they make when I listen to great words or things said in an incredible way, for me sometimes there's very little difference between a worship song and an incredible sermon. And I mean that creatively. I can hear the cadence or the lack of cadence. And I want to be taken on a journey. I think journey is incredibly important. I mean, it's important in modern worship. It's important in, liturgy. It's all important. If you're not taken on a journey. I loved even the word imagination used this morning when we were praying. I want you to imagine yourself, that it's important to utilize our imagination and to, and the goal of our worship is not the expression. The goal of our worship is that we would bring the activity of our worshiping following of Jesus to our expression, and we'd bring the expression that we sing all together back into our activity of following Jesus, right?
So whether it's a hymn or whether it's a modern song, whatever,
I can go into any worship context, and I will come out every emotion in me, every part of my being. If it's done well, it doesn't matter the form. I will come out and I'll say, "Ooh, that was a rich experience."
Is that a choice you make as you go into it, or is it?
I think it's a choice you make as you go into it. But what I'm worried about today is the extraction of journey in music, or in liturgy, or in song.
Yeah.
For instance, most worship and praise music today, it takes Psalm 40, for instance, and just on a musical level, it's unbelievable to me that we don't even. It's like we've taken it as a norm because of CCLI and money. Frankly, I'm not trying to be, but it's like that thing in the '90s set up this whole thing of this is what worship is. Because it's quick, it's easy, it won't offend anybody. We take that one portion of Psalm 40, the really good part, you know what I mean? That nobody will be depressed because you don't want to be depressed because, you know what I mean? Because that you want to be joyful. And because joyful is being happy all the time. Instead of what really comes in deep inside of us and brings us joy and fulfillment is actually knowing that we're on journey in something. And music is that way. Like eventually, actually we tap out. Because we're not being taken on a journey. Even with music, I find myself with my own music. We were just talking about it today. Like, we were listening to a great jazz artist on the way down, and I was just saying, listen to all that space. Boy, I want to learn how to create that space. But it takes courage to have space. Any psalm in the Bible, not just in modern, let's not pretend for one moment, it's not just in modern church. It's in every form of Christian tradition these days. I don't think, I find it difficult that we would consider Psalm 40 appropriate for most worship services in the world, period. Because of that kind of journey. And certainly not something written now that does that same thing, that takes us on a journey. And I feel like that extraction of journey makes it difficult for us to put our feet on the ground and say, oh, we're on a journey. Jesus is resurrected in the here and now, living, ruling, right? And reaching his hand out to me and wants to walk with me and does the music, you know. And so in the Psalms you have, I think it's Eugene Peterson that says it so the best, that you experience in one psalm almost every human emotion, thought, doubt. It's like that's a psychological mess, the Psalms. I mean, it seems like,
Messed up. David's messed up.
It kind of feels a bit like it. like, wow. Some Psalms almost seem almost like bipolar almost or something. It's like and I'm not saying that that's what we want when we're in church and everything, we've got a few minutes and we don't need to be like, hey, let me take you on this really depressing journey. Like 3 minutes of excitement. I'm not saying that at all, but I don't think, I was just recently with Brian Houston, staying at his house this week, and he keeps telling me that his songs aren't worship, and I keep telling him, that's BS. I tell him, I say, you know what? There are song leaders and then there are worship leaders, and you're a worship leader, but you sing folk songs. Why? Because your music, Brian, it directs me in the journey with Jesus. It takes me on a journey of being a husband and father and a friend and a human. And so I think in worship, this is the only thing I've been able to land on. At the level, I'm not a theologian or intellectual or anything. This is where I've landed. Just simple. Every song I write, I want it to be human. And in saying that, I'm taking this from Eugene Peterson. I want my hand to be in the dirt. I want to be connected with my neighbor, the dirt, the land, the world that I live in. And I also want my heart and my mind to be tapped into the sphere of God all at the same time. And I feel like that's a tension across an intersection of opposite, right, in our lives. And it's difficult when you try to do that in worship. I'm not going to lie. I was up in Belfast this whole week, and I'm at a conference, and I must have heard 8 times, your music really touched me. It's not worship, but it really, really touched me. I was crying. And I started learning, it's like we define it But I'll go so far as to say I've been doing this for 20 years, and people have always questioned whether I'm a worshiper or not. To the point where I started just saying, "The heck with it, I'm not a worshiper. I don't do worship." And I started repeating that. Then I had a father figure in my life say, "Don't you dare repeat that. Of course you're a worshiper. Amen. And your music is worship." And there you go. Right. I hope that's helpful. So it's like Heschel. Lastly, I was just going to say, like Abraham Joshua Heschel was the first person I ever heard say this when he was coming back from all those times that he would march with Martin Luther King, and he'd listen to those sermons, and he starts reading, and he starts writing. Whatever happened to the soul of our prayer in Judaism? He said it's like our prayers are like stillborn. Isn't that a poetic word or phrase? He said it's like inorganic Judaism. We've lost the throbbing in our throat when we speak our prayers. Nobody will ever cry. Nobody will ever scream. Nobody will ever shout. These are his words. Where are you, God? Sometimes I sit between the people in the bema seat and I ask myself, why are all these people here? Abraham Joshua Heschel, wouldn't they be better to be out golfing? These are his words. It's just, and that touched me when I read that, because I started thinking, I don't want to be over emotional, but I don't want to be unemotional, because I'm emotional. I'm a person. I'm a human being. My kids, I've been watching, you guys probably don't know this, but this last thing I'll say is on emotion is, if we don't see men who are emotional in particular, we're not learning how to be fully human. And with my children, we've been watching a thing. You've probably never seen this, but there's this show called Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, love it. Love it.
And
Laura Ingalls.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, sure.
And it's just this little thing, but oh gosh, yeah. And we've learned, because we watch so many episodes, it's like it's an addiction.
Just rolling down the hill and your tears are coming. Yeah, it's like that.
Season 3, it changes into a different rhythm.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, dun, 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 dun. It's like a Gunsmoke kind of thing, And then they changed it back. They must have gotten some flack. But anyway, so we're watching these, and you know what's amazing is for my boys and my girls to see, number one, it's an incredible 46-minute liturgy, watching Little House on the Prairie. They take you through a journey in 46 minutes.
The barn burns down.
Oh, yeah, the barn burns. It's unbelievable what you go and experience. You're crying, you're laughing, Pa. Yeah, Pa. But the thing that has really struck me is how emotional Michael is.
Oh, yeah.
He's so emotional.
Father.
It's like, it's gotten to the point where we're all like, he's crying again. He's crying. He laughs, he cries. I feel like it's exactly just about right. Yeah. You want to know what my perfect church service would be emotionally? That's about right. It's not like over the top. I love it when he gets mad and he's like, he was the original drop the mic. Like before Rocky's little speeches, it's Michael, he's just all of a sudden and this is the thing, and you know what I mean? Doc Baker,
yeah.
She doesn't need a great doctor. Maybe you're not the best doctor. Maybe you're not even that good. But what she needs is someone who cares about her and that baby. Drop the mic. Because the other doctor that came to town just loved money, remember? And all of a sudden you go through this whole process, and Doc Baker's about ready to give up the vocational life, right? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to go do something to make money. But the problem is he's a horrible farmer, because he was created for the vocation of helping heal people. And And by the end of that 46 minutes, he's taken back the vocational calling to be a doctor again and saying, thank you, Michael, the guy that just screamed at him 6 minutes ago.
And everybody's crying on the couch.
And everybody's crying, and we're all like, oh man, I need to take back my vocational calling too and go after it and not just do things for, but the point is, the emotion.
What is the point? Not that I would need one, I could be here all day.
The point is it's just about perfect to me. That I don't want to be afraid to cry, laugh. I don't want to be afraid of having a sermon that they go after me at one point and tell me, you know, a good Michael moment where he just starts getting my face a little bit and get us all back into shape, right? I feel like it's just about the right amount of emotion. There's a bit of anger, there's a bit of tears, there's a bit of sadness, there's laughter, there's joy, it's beautiful.
So join us next week when we talk about Waltons. And the Wells is another one, right?
You're awesome, man.
Every time. Please put your hands together for Jason.
Thanks, guys.